Hello, everybody. We are live tonight. You guys know the deal. Show me some llamas in the chat so we know we are live. And we are excited to have you guys tonight for our demo. We have Steve Pelto here tonight, and he has some awesome watercolor landscape plan for you. Sorry, my cat was jumping up on my lap. Not right now, cat. Welcome though. Let's see some llamas. Type them in the chat. You can hear us and see us. Show us some llamas. Alrighty, my name is Anna. I'll be your host this evening. If you haven't been here before, I will be passing along questions to Steve as he's painting tonight. And we have Steve here. He is going to do an awesome demo for us where he kind of shows us his process. If you're looking for more of a step-by-step tutorial, don't worry, we have those for you too. That is going to be for the mini workshop, which we'll talk about later. And that is going to be a step-by-step follow along for sure that you can jump in and paint alongside. So if you guys have questions tonight, type question in all caps followed by your question. And that way I can see it pop up very easily and clearly in the chat, and I'll be able to pass those along. We do these free online demos pretty much every day now. So thank you for joining us tonight. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have Steve tonight doing the watercolor evening seaside landscapes, perfect for a nice evening or morning if it's for you, but we can all enjoy an evening painting. And our next one is on August 19th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Alan Kirk, and he will be showing us watercolor lines in urban scenes. So make sure you guys jump on and see that. All right, Steve, I think everyone is ready for you.
Okay.
So take it away.
Okay, so I work mainly in landscapes that pick out the points where like civilization and wilderness kind of meet. So I do a lot of cityscapes along the sea. I tend to work with water and mostly northern landscapes. I'm from Upper Michigan. I lived in the Pacific Northwest as well. I love watercolor mainly because you don't have complete control. So you're painting and things happen and you have to adjust to it. And it actually makes me relax a little bit. I'm not as fussy about things as I would be if it was oil or acrylic, where I could control it more. And I find that it's kind of exciting to see the things that happen on paper that I have to adjust to and work into my composition. I have a few extra paintings that I'd like to show you. This is the one I'll be working on tonight.
I'm going to switch over to our down view. Go ahead.
So this one?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. All right. So this is also my hometown again, waterfront. Just having a few boats indicative of humanity and people and story along this waterfront scene near where I live in Marquette, Michigan. This is just a simple tree along the water. I'm from up north, so you'll see a lot of snow paintings from me. And after a heavy blizzard, you get these unique effects where the pine trees are completely covered and you get beautiful shadowy blues, which are really kind of exciting for me. This is actually my brother and his son playing pond hockey. And this is one of my favorite places. I do enjoy going to Disney still. I don't care how old I am. This is always going to be a place that I enjoy. And I feel it's a great subject. And I've often thought I'd like to just go down for a week and move around Epcot and the Magic Kingdom and paint some of these nice angles. Finally, this is the Canna Island Lighthouse in Door County, Wisconsin. And for my mini workshop, we'll be painting a scene of the other side of the Canna Island Light. And it's one of those points where you get that strong architectural feature against trees and water. And I really enjoy that kind of sight line. So this is what I work on. This is what I focus on.
They're also beautiful, and I love the use of color and the lighting is what I mean to say. They're also awesome work.
Well, thank you. And I think one of the strengths of watercolor is that you can put those thin washes on and it becomes really bright. It glows almost. And even though this is a night scene that we're painting today, you're going to notice the sky really isn't that dark. When the moon is full, and I've exaggerated the size of it, but when the moon is full, the stars kind of recede and you get, if you have any clouds, it kind of glows and the water shimmers. And if we had this scene during a snowstorm or after like a lot of snow had fallen, it would be even brighter. And I think you can do just beautiful shimmering night scenes with watercolor. It's one of the great strengths, I believe.
Absolutely. And I have a special shout out from you from Bella. She says, please say hello.
Well, hello to Bella. Thank you.
From Australia. Bella from Australia.
No kidding. There are so many good watercolorists in Australia. It's like half of my favorite painters seem to be coming from that place. And I don't know, maybe it's the water down there. I'm going to shift.
Beautiful.
It sure is. I'm going to shift over, first of all, to my sketch that I did. And since I've done this piece before, the first time I did it, I probably spent a little bit more time with the sketch. But since I know this so well and I knew the arrangement, I did a quick sketch. It's going to disappear under the paint and water. And I just wanted to lay out my lines. I work frequently with with thirds. And so we have the thirds this way. The moon is rising in one of them. The dog is sitting in it. And the male figure over here is in the third as well. And then I use the upper third for the horizon line. And this one, this kind of diagonal line kind of fits into that bottom third. And, you know, the theory within design is that if you put things on the thirds, they're natural focal points. And if you can make it so it's sitting, crossing two of them, as the man and the dog are, that they pull the eye and draw you in. I don't think it's a hard, fast rule, but this is one of the ways I approach it and think about it. For this one, I have this beautiful sketchbook. It's actually an etcher sketchbook. It is high quality paper. And so this hilltop is near my hometown. And, you know, I've been up there a couple hundred times at least. And the original photo that I took for it, I was up there visiting with my friend Eric, and it was daytime. So I've been up there at night numerous times as well. And so I took the daytime photo and I combined it with an experience I had with the moon to create a scene that I wanted to paint. And the first thing I always do is do a quick pencil sketch, 5 minutes or less, and I lay out the thirds again. And then in that, I'm thinking about how the viewer might experience the painting. This is an area I need to keep working on, that I focus on quite a bit, and that is designing a painting. So in this case, I know the moon's going to draw the eye, but I want people to see the other parts of it. And so when I sketched this out, I was thinking the eyes would move naturally down to the person. And then because of the line of the hilltop and the dog, and people seem to be drawn to animals, I know I am, that the eyes would move down, go to the man, work over to the dog, and then work back up. Instead of leaving the painting, you get kind of a circular effect that's very attractive to me. Now, when I was doing a couple of quick practice sketches, I left the figures out of this one, and I felt like in this case, the focus became, this is called Presque Isle back here. This is Middle Island Point. And it feels like these become what people are looking at. I tried it down here with my friend Eric on the third on the right, where the dog was sitting. And I like this. The focal point just becomes this third over here. And I think this works really well, but I don't think you get this sense of movement where you look through the painting. And I love having the dog sitting with the man. I'm a pet person. So anytime you can have your pets involved in what you're doing, it's attractive to me. So that would draw me into the painting. And in the end, I'm thinking about what will make people want to see it and look at it and spend more time with it.
Yeah, it's also really cool to see your notes and hear your thought process, because we could just look at this and not know, like, oh, you went through all these thoughts to compose the final piece, which is really neat to see.
And I really like this, and I may paint this at some point this way. I was up there with my buddy Eric, and I know he stood there at one point. I remember looking over his shoulder, And this would be a more lonely kind of a picture, and I might change the color scheme a little bit. I might like redesign it. In this case, I just wanted that night scene. I wanted it to be kind of a bluish yellow kind of a scene. And I knew going in that the grays were going to be really important. I like to work with ultramarine blue. It's the French ultramarine that I use. And I generally mix it on my palette with Quin Rust and raw umber. And I was just checking to see which of these is going to work best for me. And I do this frequently, just do a quick color thing. Sometimes it's a triad, it's red, blue, and yellow, which are the three I'm going to use for this one. Frequently, it's I do a lot of stuff with grays, and I want to know what the grays and the darks are going to look like. So I put this together, and then I'm going to show you one other thing. I'm sorry I'm taking so long with this, but
no, it's okay.
This is
some people in the chat already said, thank you. I learned something with the rule of thirds and everything. So it's really neat to hear it.
I appreciate you saying that. And this is, again, all of this is from the same two colors. This is French ultramarine and quinacridone rust. And they work really well together. They do this thing where they granulate a little bit so you get texture, but you can make this beautiful black. It's kind of a bluish black. You can bring it out to this absolutely stunning kind of silvery blue. And I feel like I could paint an entire painting with just these two colors. And I think I could create something that's kind of nice. And so I did this. I wanted to see how the lines would work. And then I did it again with French ultramarine, and this Daniel Smith makes a German greenish raw umber. And again, I got this great silver, but then it faded out to this almost a yellow. And again, I feel like you could do something really, really nice with just two colors. And then I had the ironic moment yesterday. I'm one of those artists who just loves to buy paint. And so I finally tracked down this pigment. It's called PW220, and is a whole bean paint. It's silver. It's made with mica, so it just shimmers. It's really pretty. But
that's awesome.
Look, I mean, if you look though, I made almost the same colors here. And was it necessary? I don't know, but it was just one of those moments where I just looked at it for the first time today. Then I was looking at these and saying, oh, well, maybe I didn't need it that much. I still like having it though. So I have all sorts of paints. This will be a tube that I'll have for the rest of my life. I'll just use it once in a while. Last thing I'll show you here is this is French Ultra again with Quin Rust. And this is on the Shizan paper out of India. They take old saris and bleach them out, and then they turn it into a cotton paper. It has a lot of texture. And so you see it here, kind of smooth. But then when you put it on a rougher paper, you get more of the granulation. It falls into the spaces in the rougher texture paper, and you get these interesting effects. And when there's flaws in the paper, these came out brown. It's totally out of control. You can't make it do what you want it to do. You have to paint it and then see what happens and then adjust. But I think it's pretty attractive, and I like to play with it and see where it goes. I work with this kind of paper almost all the time, but every once in a while, it's great to pull out something else and see what happens. And let the watercolor take you where it wants to go.
Can you say the name of the red and the blue color again?
Sure. This is Daniel Smith, French ultramarine blue. They also make a regular ultramarine blue. This one's a little bit more reddish. The French is a little more reddish. And this is actually called quinacridone rust. And this is from M. Graham in Portland. But a lot of people make a Quin Rust. They have different names for it. I think it's PO 48, I think, pigment orange 48. And it granulates nicely with the French ultramarine. So you get this, the pigments bind together and they fall into the crevices in the paper. And so you get some darker spots, some lighter spots. And again, it's unexpected. It doesn't always do what you ask it to do, but it always does something beautiful. And so for me, I like the adventure of it, and I like to see where it goes. And when I mixed these together, I really had no idea what I would get. I just knew it would be pretty and I could work with it.
That's actually
Same here.
Really cool to see too.
And this, I mean, I could make stone out of this. I could use it as tree bark. It's just this beautiful blue. I mean, I could do a map and say that this looks like contours in a map as well. It's very versatile. And that's why it's always on my palette.
Awesome. And we have a question. When you're
Sure.
painting, do you use wet on wet? Is that something we might see today?
Yeah, I'm gonna wet the entire paper before the first wash, and then I'm gonna try to let the wash dry out a little bit, but after that, frequently I do layers. So for instance, right here, and this was a quick one, this is a quick sketch, but when I do this painting, excuse me, when I did this, the last layer of my sky was still damp when I did these hills in the distance because I wanted them to blur a little bit in. Things in the far distance aren't as distinct. They're a little bit grayer as well. So it gives the illusion of distance. So I wanted that to be, this would be wet on damp probably would be a more accurate way to look at it. But frequently, like within the stonework, it's wet on wet. I've done some exercises where I draw an X on the paper and I go into quarters and I draw a tree and I do dry on dry, dry on wet, wet on dry, wet on wet, just to see the different effect that you create. It's good exercise. You learn a lot from it. I also have sketchbooks. That's why I was so excited to get this one from Etcher. Did this beautiful little thing for my name and phone number. But
It is an awesome sketchbook. The paper is really nice too.
It's so good, and I'm a vegan, so this is something I can use without feeling guilty. All my brushes are synthetic, things like that matter to me. But here, this is where I experiment. And when I first got back into watercolor, I was living in California 10 years ago, and I went into the store and I saw watercolors, and I just on an impulse bought some, got a sketchbook, and I would go a month and I would do like hands. It's like a month, every day a different hand. Then I'd do a month of trees, a month of birds, and I'd do all these different wet on wet, dry on dry, crazy kind of psychedelic colors, sometimes like just black and white. And I did this for like 3 or 4 years. Every day I had to have a painting done in the sketchbook. And periodically I would step out and take out a sheet of paper and do something that I intended to hang on the wall or give to somebody. But it was the best exercise for me because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I couldn't remember all the ways I had worked in the past. And I just wanted to see what the paint would do. I mean, I did silly things. I'd paint a wash and I'd like hold the brush up high above it and drip a different paint into it to see how it would spread, to see how it would like change and work the colors in that one spot. And it was just fun. I was playing with paint. I was like a little kid, and I learned a great deal about like washes especially, but also how colors mixed. And so when I created my own palette, this is actually where you can see it. When I got to a palette that I use most of the time. This is carefully thought out. This is my ultramarine blue, and it's going to work really well with these two earth tones to make my grays. You're not going to see a black on my thing. These are all quinacridones. They blend really well with all of these paints. These two right here are both raw umber and raw sienna. They come from the same soil, the same pigment, and all these things work together. I have 2 of these here because this one will granulate with French ultramarine. This one doesn't granulate as much. This is a staining pigment, and I can do different things with this. This one sits on the surface. I can lift it off after I paint it. You know, it's all laid out for a reason, and I learned all about that just working sketchbooks and playing with paint.
That's such a cool trick too, and such good tips for anyone who's wanting to practice more to get in your sketchbook and try that out.
Yeah, and it actually felt really good because I didn't care if I screwed it up. I was never showing anybody unless I really liked it. And sometimes the paper can be intimidating. You go out and spend $12 for a big, huge sheet of paper and you're staring at it. And if you make a mistake, it can be for some people, it's really upsetting. And for me, the sketchbook was fantastic. If I did something wrong, I'd pull out pens and do something over it, or I'd write a journal entry that day. And I just treat it like I was just putting color on the paper, and it's a nice backdrop for my journal. So those things are fun to go back and look at. Sometimes I find stuff that I really like, and I'll take a picture of it now and I'll put it into my Instagram page and share it proudly.
Awesome.
So I'm going to put this away and dive into the painting, if that's okay.
One of our viewers says, I'm taking notes.
It makes me feel good to hear that. And I appreciate you saying that. I learn a lot from just looking at other people's work and watching videos as well. So I get where you're coming from, and we're all going to learn continuously throughout our entire lives as we paint. Sometimes I have a bigger brush for this. I did tell you I was going to have this like Escada quill mop kind of paintbrush. So I'm just going to wet this paper good. And for a wash, I always wet it because I don't want any seams on my wash. I want it to blend throughout. And you'll see me, I'll pick up the paper and I'll tip it and try to make it move around. And usually if this is my first layer, this is the color that's going to come through at the end. If I leave a spot clean of any other paint, this is what's going to glow through in the end. So
so you're thinking about your very first color you're going to put down that will be showing at the end.
Absolutely, and it's even going to be under the sky. So my approach to this is always color first, and then tone and like grays later on, to usually shadows at the end. But like those darker tones come in afterwards, and that's usually what makes the painting. But the color is something that I love and I want early on. So I'm going to take a little nickel azo yellow, and I'm going to put it into the moon, and it's a bright yellow. And this will be the only time I use it in this painting. I want it there, and I want a little bit of it in the water. And I don't really care if I get it into the trees where the land is going to be. I can paint over it, and when I go over it with a dark blue or something, it'll turn a little bit greenish, and more power to it. It'll be nice that way. And then I'm going to circle it with raw sienna. And the reason I do this is because when raw sienna encounters my French ultramarine, it makes it gray. Nickel azo is going to turn it green, and I don't want a green night. And if I use this as kind of a boundary between the blue and the nickel azo, I can have the nice yellow, but then I also am able to maintain the blue without it changing too much on me. And then I'm just going to throw my my French ultramarine here, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time worrying about it. Lots of water, keep it wet. It's going to be it's not going to be a dark, intense wash right now. And because we only have an hour, it probably, in the end, it's not going to be as dark as night sky as I might make otherwise. But it's going to be the kind of thing where I can paint my figures right over it, and I'm not going to have any difficulty in seeing things through it. It's just going to be really light. And basically I want this, the shine of the moon on the water and the glow in the sky. And I can go with this. And basically this is my first wash, pretty much done. And because I'm fussy, I'll probably go along and I like to clean up my edges a little bit. And sometimes water sneaks under the tape and brings paint with it. So I do tend to clean it up a little bit afterwards.
That was a super quick wash too. Is in the first wash, there's a lot more water to paint?
Yes.
And you want it to be that lighter color, is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And then this, because other things have to be painted over this. So when I paint this man over this area later on, I don't want to be trying to make it super dark to show up over what's down there already. So this light wash, I can go and dig out my little mix of French ultramarine and Quin rust that'll be almost black, and it'll go over that with no problem at all. I can take I could do him in purple, the back of him, because he's like a shadow, and that'll show up beautifully. But then I can also go up into my sky in a few minutes and darken the edges here away from the moon, where I'm going to spray some stars into there later on. And then I can paint my islands in. Honestly, I may not do anything else with the water surface at all. It's a night scene. The focus is the moon, not the water. People are going to glance at it maybe. And this is probably all I need to do. I mean, if I want to put a few waves in there, a couple little spots of white to indicate waves around the islands, awesome. I'll kind of decide that as I go. But I'm looking right now that this is the main glow here of the night sky, and everything else is light enough so I can work over it.
Awesome.
And now I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just saying how cool it looks already.
Now I'm going to look at the paper and I can see the paper is still shiny. So if I put another layer down on it, it's going to spread like crazy, which isn't terrible in my sky. And I'll probably put a little, I'll start darkening in the sky here in a moment. But if I was going to try to do a detailed man right now, I can't, because as soon as I paint his head, even if I had the thickest of paint, it's going to start leaching out and he's going to have a little halo of whatever dark color I put down. I have to wait on anything where I want details to hang around. If I did this tree though, I could right now if I wanted to, and that little bit of glow around the tree would be fine, because I could almost just do the branches and let the paint spread out from the branches like the needles, and I might be done with it. And again, this isn't a focal point. It has to just read as a tree. Your observer is not going to, well, some people might, but most aren't going to sit and stare at that tree and examine it. They're going to be looking at the things I want them to look at. And so I'm just thinking my way through this process and then talking my way through it with you as well. So
thank you for that. We do have a question actually
Sure.
about why don't you tape the edges?
Well, these edges are taped right now. And then my concern, what I was talking about, my concern here is where the tape comes up over the edge. There's just this little gap sometimes and water sneaks in, and anyone who's owned a home and had a water leak understands water finds the crack and works its way through, and it'll bring pigment with it. So I even sometimes take mastic and put a little dot in the corners to try to stop that. But if I'm on top of it and I'm just wiping up the excess, it goes away. I like this look of this white when I pull the tape and I get this kind of frame. What I will do, my way when I'm selling paintings, if I go to a show, I don't want to sound cheap, but if I have to put 50 paintings in frames for a show, I'm looking to do it as economically as possible. I'll just buy a sheet of matting, and if I have this nice clean white tape line around it that frames the painting, I'll just take double-sided archival tape and I'll put it on top of the mat and make sure it's centered and straight. And then I just put it into the painting and it's floating on top of the mat. And I do a simple black framing. And if I tape down, I always get a nice clean look. And then this is actually a print that I gave to my friend and I borrowed it because I don't have the original anymore. But you can see I signed it, the original, and then I signed this was an artist proof that I gave to him down here. And so you can sign in the white. It's nice if you want to put a title down here. For people that don't know the area, maybe they want to know where this is. I have like 3 different sizes of tape. If it's a bigger painting, I go to a thicker tape and a thicker, wider framing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope I answered that. I'm halfway through. I wasn't sure I was.
I was just going to tell you, we're about halfway through.
The whole thing?
Yes, we're 30 minutes in.
Oh, stop it. I apologize, folks. I need to pick up the pace. All right, I'm just going to put a little more.
So much good information coming from you, so we love hearing it.
Okay, I'm just going to put some more color into the sky, and then I'll dive into the islands, and I'll move quickly. So if I was working at home, sometimes I would do 2 or 3 similar paintings, like using the same kind of color scheme. And while one's drying, I'm working on another, and so I can use my time in different ways. I'm just going to throw a little purple into the edges here. It's dark. It's going to spread out. It looks like I'm being really sloppy, but it's going to be okay. Sometimes I'll throw this other phthalo blue in here just to mix up the blues, put it in with the purple. And it looks like I'm out of control here, but it's okay. Throw a little red in sometimes. Sometimes I'll throw a little white paint. I put a little on the palette just in case I wanted to use it. But there's a lot of watercolor artists who will tell you never to use white. Always let the white of the paper show through for your white, but I find a little bit of white sometimes is beautiful for highlights or just to throw in for effect. And I'll even put in a little bit of this greenish umber in with the blue. And that has like a graying effect in some parts of the sky. And then I'm just going to let it roll around.
And there's a question from one of our viewers about it. Why don't you use a board to tape the paper down? Is there a reason for that?
I have boards. I have done that in the past, and this paper, I mean, I'm halfway where I could justify that. This paper will buckle a little bit. When I use 300-pound paper, there's absolutely no need in my mind to do it. The paper is never going to buckle. If I'm using a light paper, I do that sometimes, and you can see the paper swelling and moving a little bit. But what I've found, I like to be able to handle it easily. I have some small boards, and I'll do that sometimes. I guess over time, I like to be able to flip this thing around quickly and easily. And I'm working with small sheets right now, and I feel like I can control it just fine with my hands right now. When I do full sheets, and I don't do those a lot, for starters, they're really expensive for people to buy. And this size actually sells pretty well. I know that's a very commercial way to look at it, but I want to share my art with people, and I want people to buy it and see it and have it. So I'm going to give them the size that they seem to want the most. So I do go with a smaller size, but I do have boards. I have, I'm right now, I'm at my mom's house in Minnesota. I'm waiting for my new apartment in Upper Michigan. And I actually do have a drafting table that angles. And I like to have the paper on an angle frequently like this. So
Yeah,
it runs.
I see you moving it around a little as you're painting.
Yeah. I want to make sure it's mixing for starters. And you can already see I've got this, these colors shift around and move about. And because Quinn Rust and French Ultramarine create a beautiful granulation. I didn't put Quinn Rust in here, but you can see here the French Ultramarine is granulating again. And in a sky like this, when I splatter some stars on later, these lighter spots will simply fit in with the stars, and it's going to look like, it was designed, like I developed that technique just to do a night sky. And if I do the layer after layer in a darker and darker sky, the effect just gets more and more dramatic.
That's awesome.
All right, I'm going to put in the distant islands right now because I'm short on time. So
is this the damp on damp you were mentioning before?
Yeah, and it's not islands, actually. It's just the other side of the bay.
Is that a mix of the French ultramarine and
Quinn Rust?
Okay.
Or quinacridone rust is the full name. The quinacridone colors are really good. Modern technology, they blend well with everything else. They last a long time. So they've come to replace some of the old colors that the masters used to use. And there's a lot of quinacridone colors that are out there. And I would suggest you explore them. The great tragedy of watercolor is a few years ago, the best color of them all just went out of production. And you can't, quinacridone gold. Within the painting industry, the auto industry has a tremendous influence on what paints are available. And so quinacridone gold went out of fashion for use in cars. You may remember some of the gold kind of shimmery cars from the 80s and 90s. I think those were all painted with quinacridone gold. It was a wonderful watercolor. And the pigment, they just stopped manufacturing it because selling it just to watercolor artists doesn't make enough money for them. So the favorite color of numerous watercolor artists, and I know people who have hoarded it and bought numerous tubes so they have a lifetime supply.
I mean, if you're careful, they can last for a while, right?
Yeah, and Daniel Smith made a two pigment attempt to satisfy customers. And it's nice. It's a nice paint. Daniel Smith makes good paints. They're not putting out anything that's bad, but it's just not the same. So I have a half tube of it left. I only pull it out for really special things. And it's one of those things if anyone's going to college for chemistry and you can maybe do a project where you create some quinacridone gold, I guarantee you will sell all of it. Right now, one of those small tubes I saw on eBay for like $300. It's like, it is highly in demand, and you have to watch out for people who are trying to sucker you in with fake product.
So is this a mix of the French ultramarine that's like a little bit more on the French ultramarine side than the Quin.
Yep.
Aquadone.
And the reason I'm sorry, I'm not talking about my painting. My apologies.
No, you're fine.
So this is Quin Rust and French ultramarine. It's darker. It's thicker paint because it's getting closer to the viewer. And when things are closer to you, they're more distinct and they're stronger. And I actually used more of both paints, but because as you get closer to these islands, this is Middle Island here, you're going to see the bluish green a little bit more than the reddish because you're going to see the trees. And so I'm doing this quick painting, and I apologize for just like slapping it down here, guys, but I talk too much.
No, you're fine. We also have so much good information about like the paints and all that. That's really cool.
It's something
gold.
I've studied. And if anyone's really interested in learning about this pigments and whatnot, there is a website called Handprint. The man does not update it anymore. I don't know if he's still around, but he was, he's one of those people in the age of the internet who went out of his way to do research on paint, and he would buy every tube of paint available and he'd test it and then light test it outside and post incredible notes about like which ones performed, what he thought it worked best with. And it was just remarkable stuff for me to be able to go when I was shopping for a new color. I know I want another blue. I'd go to Handprint and look at all the blues, every blue pigment that Watercolor has. He would have a write-up about it. And he laid out every detail that I wanted to know about. So it's like Handprint. Just go into Google and type in Handprint Watercolor, and you're going to get to this person's page. And if he's not around, rest in peace. He is like, I think a lot of watercolorists really appreciate what he did. And it was a man. I just can't think of his name now.
That's okay. I typed it in the chat just in case someone wants to Google it. And also, I just want to briefly mention, if you guys are really enjoying this, Steve has so much more to show you. So I'm going to type in his mini workshop link as well, so you guys can check that out. It's on September 6th, and it is going to be awesome. We'll show you another sneak peek towards the end of our demo here today, so you guys can see like what we're doing again. Just pop that in the chat, and if you want to sign up, that's a step-by-step tutorial, so you can paint along and also hear all this awesome information.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Hey, I'm going to show you one other thing, and I picked this up from a famous painter. Herman Peckel talked about it a lot, but never wash out the bottom of your tray. So I have this butcher's tray, which seems ironic for a vegan, I suppose, but and I have it on an angle, and all the extra paint just runs down to the bottom. And when I want to clean it, I just take clean water. I never wipe this out though. This is my grays down here, and they're just gorgeous. And I can add a little color to them and change them. And right now I need to do these rocks up at the top of Sugarloaf. And all I have to do is go down to the bottom of my tray and pull some of that out. And then if I need to make it more reddish, I grab a red. If I want to make it more blue, I grab some blue. I can yellow it out a little bit, and it's there. And this is not news to a lot of people, but when I first heard about it, it was like, holy cow! It's valuable pigment for one. You're just throwing it away. You spend all that money on those paints, and why get rid of it if it's useful? And I love gray, so
it looks beautiful too. And would you mind sliding your painting up a little? It's shifted down. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, folks. That's the first time I've ever done this kind of thing. So it's my timing may be a little bit off, and I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. We're enjoying it. And we actually are right at the 40-minute mark. So we still have 20 minutes left. You're doing great.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna put together a little mix of thick paint. I put new paint on my palette for this on purpose. So this French ultramarines right out of the tube. It's thick, and then I can mix it with my Quin Rust, and I get a really thick dark paint. You just can't get this if you've let them sit and dry out. you can put water on, you get beautiful stuff for washes. But in order to get a really dark, you absolutely have to have fresh paint straight out of the tube. So I need to do something over here. I'm just gonna throw down a quick tree here. And again, this is this tree, people aren't going to spend a ton of time looking at it. You know, it's over here. It's more brown than it probably should be, but hey, there's brown trees out there too, and they need some love too, I guess. So here we go.
Could be a winter tree.
Yeah, and the especially the tamarack in Upper Michigan, the needles turn brown at one point in the season, and this doesn't look quite like a tamarack, but I mean, there it is. And I could fiddle with this. And normally, if I was going to spend a lot of time with this, if somebody asked me to do this for them, I would practice before I put that down, and I would think, you know, carefully about what do I actually want this thing to look like. And just for reference, like this thing I had shown you here. I mean, I could do a deciduous tree up here. Nobody would know the difference, right? But I just knew it was a pine when I was up there, and I wanted to do a pine. But you know, I can just darken it in, grab some paint. I just needed something over here on the side that that fills out the painting and blocks eyes from going off the edge. So I go to this man, instead of going this way, they're going to swing on over, and I'll put another little one here. Paint's a little too thick maybe, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to put this out here for us. And what I'll do sometimes, if I'm not satisfied with a tree, at the end, I'll grab white paint or a white pen, and I'll tap a little bit of highlight here and there. And it's just amazing what a touch of white can do sometimes to a piece like that. So I'm just going to put this in here. There'll be shadows there later. And I have another tree on this side, but right now I'm going to leave it alone, simply because I feel like I'm going to run out of time, and I want to do some other things for you first. One of the things I would do with this painting, without a doubt, is I'm going to put some stars into the sky. Right now, this moon looks like a sun, and so I'm going to need to tone this thing down a little bit.
And how can you tell us how you would go about toning that down? Are you kind of
I'm going to put
that now?
Yeah, I'm going to put a little color into the top, so it's coming over the horizon. And I just saw this beautiful photo of a moon rising like this, and the bottom was a little bit more lit up than the top. And you know, I could sit down and figure it out in my head, you know, how this is happening, you know, where the moon's located against the sun, et cetera, et cetera. But I just trusted the photo and did this. I threw a little red into it when I did it. And just so it stood out against the other colors. Now I'm going to come back in later with a whitish yellow that uses gum arabic and put it over the whole thing to give it a shimmer. And this is just a backdrop for that, making it a tiny bit muddy, and I'm a little bummed about that. But this is where, in moment of desperation, I might reach for the white and put a little bit of white in there and horrify the purists. But
hey, we got to keep everyone on their toes, right?
I don't think it's a bad thing. But right now, it feels more like a moon. And
yeah,
if I was going to spend some time, I would put some darkened craters in. There's that one large crater that shows up, and I can just put a hint of it in here. And I could do another one here, and I might even just do some splatter on it, and just let the splatter spread out. And it's amazing. Sometimes you just do that, and it happens. And there you go. Now I can do the same kind of splatter with the white to create some stars, or I can use my toothbrush and I can do some tricks with that. But
everyone loves a good splatter. So is that like a white gouache or
It is, yeah. It's again, that, I know there's people that would not ever put gouache on one of their paintings, but I'll put it on with this white pen too. It's all pigment in the end. And I'll do this trick with the toothbrush. I'll wet the toothbrush a little bit. And then the trick with this is you don't want it too wet or it's going to dribble all over the place. You don't want it too dry or it won't fly off. But I
And
don't
you
know
kind of cover the work below.
yeah, I do this with snow as well.
That's such a good trick. It looks awesome.
And I don't know if you can see it. They show up. I'm not worried about where it goes. I don't know where the stars are, and I don't have a map of stars in my head. So it's like I'm not, unless I'm doing the Milky Way or Orion's Belt or something like that. I'm not going to spend any time thinking about it. And then later on, I'm going to come back and I'm going to plug in a couple stars with my white pen anywhere I feel like it needs a little bit more. And then I'll usually go back in and get a bright red and put 3 pieces with red, a few with yellow, and 1 or 2 with blue. Because if you look up into the night sky, you're going to see these things shimmering. I saw one last night. It was a binary star. My brother and I looked it up. We were walking the dog, and it's 2 stars, a red one above a blue one, and they were kind of sparkly. And it was. I was thinking about, okay, I need to put that in a painting someday. It's beautiful, and I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to dive right back in and talk while I paint, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. It's really neat to hear your process and everything as well. We're really enjoying it.
I'm just going to put a little line of lighter color along. This is a lot of it's beachy here, or rocks, and I just want to throw a little something in there. I would normally make the water a little bit darker, but I feel like I'm going to run out of time here. And this is looking a little more abstract than I intended it to in the beginning.
It looks really neat. And Steve, if you feel like you need to go over a little bit, we can also go over if you feel like you have some finishing touches.
Oh, all right. I feel like, so if you look at the original, so where I am right now, I mean, I could always go in and do more and more detail in the rocks, throw grass in there. I can put trees over here. I could skip them. I could just pretend like I was over to the left a little bit and the trees were out of view. I've got the chimneys from the old power plant to put in there. They actually tore them down last month, so that doesn't exist anymore. But in my head, they're always there, because I grew up with that. And but maybe I'll try to do the man right now as we're getting short on time, and you'll see at least this part of it. And 1,000 apologies for not getting it completely done if that's the case.
Oh no, we have so much good information. And if people are really loving it, they should just come to the mini workshop and join along with you. It's going to be awesome. So,
okay. So what I'm doing this time is I'm taking the French ultramarine and I'm mixing it with the raw umber, the German greenish umber, and I like that shadow for a person. And I'm just gonna throw it on here. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time worrying about it. His back is to us. I just need to make sure that I tend to make heads too fat, and I need to worry about that. And then I tend to make the legs too pronounced. So there's a couple little things when I do a figure like this, and I need to remember. And again, this is one of those things where people are going to read it as a person. And if you look at my all-time favorite watercolorist is Joseph Zabukovic. He works out of Australia. He's Croatian, I believe, by birth, but he's an Australian through and through. And his figures, his legs don't even go to the ground. He just does a quick stroke and they just fade into nothing. And if you look at his stuff in detail, you learn that you don't need to slavishly imitate. You don't have to create a photograph with paint. If you want a photograph, take a photograph. But if you're painting, you're trying to capture the feeling and the mood of the moment. And I could leave the legs like this, and everybody who looks at this is going to read this as a man. And especially if I take and create a shadow coming off of this.
So we don't have to get like too into the details of it.
No. And now, because of the way I am, then I would probably go back and tinker a little bit. But it's a start. And to quote, but I have to be careful. All right. And I'm quoting Zubukovic again, or going back to him. And he said, every painting that's ever ruined is preceded by the words, I'll just do this. And so sometimes you have to know when to stop, and you have to know when enough is enough. And this doesn't, this is not good enough for me. So I would continue to tinker with it. But at some point I have to say enough is enough. And if you look at this figure here closely, there's no detail. I like the dog better. Maybe I like dogs
They're both
better.
really nice.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like, it reads fine.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it doesn't have to be that super detailed, because the painting is about the moon. If this was a portrait of whoever that was, then I'm bound to try to create a likeness that works for them. And but in this case, I throw some shadows here, and the moon is drawing our attention away. Yeah, it's going to be fine. I'll tinker with it a little bit later, but I mean, I might even just come in here and just throw a little bit of purple shadow into the sides away from the moon. And then I might come in with something as simple as a little bit of highlighting from, I'll use my pen right now. And
Kind of touch like a highlight on his shoulder there from the moon.
yeah, and it's like the moon side. Now this is a little exaggerated, but it gets the job done. And so I can do the same thing in here for the tree. And
Pretty awesome, where you can do it the little details that really make it.
in the I always say shadows are everything. You have to have the shadows in there. But these little highlights, you know, I can, if I feel like it's too strong, I just go in there with my finger and soften it up a little bit. But I can go around an island, and okay, there's waves usually here, and I can hit it. I can just do something there and smear it a little bit. And if the water's a little bit bluer, that white really stands out against it. I can go back in here and these white dots. Venus has been really strong. If it was not a full moon night, I might put a really powerful Venus in the sky. And I just look for places. I don't care where the stars are supposed to be. I'm just looking to have like an asymmetrical kind of starry sky. And I want to leave some areas that are kind of darker and empty. And then I want to leave some areas with a lot, like almost like the Milky Way kind of cloudy effect. And you know, this is one of those things. I might walk away from this and come back in a day or two and pick up my white pen and throw some more stars in there, because, like, darn it, I need more stars. And then
you can never
sometimes
have enough stars.
yeah, and then sometimes I might feel like I walk away thinking I'm going to do it, and then I realize, no, I'm done, and stop it. All right, the last thing I'm going to do, I think that I have time for, I had promised to use the gum arabic. So for those of you that don't know, watercolor paint is pigment. So, you know, little chemically bonded pieces of, sometimes it's iron, sometimes it's like a chemical, sometimes it's from the soil. But they mix it with water and a binder, and the binder is almost always gum arabic. And that's what keeps it together when it sits down on the paper. And if it didn't, you'd be able to wipe off like ultramarine would, you'd blow it off the paper. It has to have something that's going to stick it to the paper. Some also put a kind of a lubricant almost in there. The paints I get from M. Graham, they always put honey into their paint, and it smooths out the way in which you apply it. Now, for me, if you add extra gum arabic to the painting, specifically over water, it'll look more transparent. So sometimes I'll do the water like this, and I'll take just a little bit of blue with gum arabic and paint over it again, and you get this shiny water that you can see through, and it's a really nice effect. And I like to do this with the moon as well, and you can get this shimmering moon. Now I did some crude examples of this, and but I think you can see the shine here. This has nothing, and then I used the gum arabic here, and you can see the shimmer on the moon itself, and you can put it into the water.
Absolutely.
It actually is, you'll feel hard. If you use too much of it, it'll be sticky. It's like you have gum on the paper. But this moon on my example was done this way. And this is a print, but I painted it at the very end. I came back over it with a whitish yellow with gum arabic. And then I went over the water with it here as well and just feathered it out.
It does have like a nice glow to it. It's very cool to see.
And it feels like the moon is sitting on top of the sky. So like in watercolor, you're always thinking about the illusion of depth and distance. And the gum arabic, to me, brings it forward. And so this moon with the gum arabic on it feels like it's pulling forward a little bit. And so what I'm just going to do very quickly is I'm taking up basically one scoop of gum arabic, and I'm going to mix it with one thing of water on my palette, and then I'm going to put in the raw sienna. And I'm going to just throw a touch of white into that. Needs just a touch more water. All right. And then I'm going to come back in to my moon. And this is one of the reasons I like having the paper so easy to spin around. For whatever reason, doing circles is one of my weaknesses.
I think circles are just challenging to get just the right shape down.
Well, that's right. And you told me you're an art teacher too, right? So you're working with this kind of stuff all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I know I taught too. I know kids, they're not always, they're going to tell you if you don't get it right too, I'm sure. Man, there. So I've added the gum arabic here with the color. And when this dries, this moon's going to shine a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more pronounced and forward. And then I'm just going to put a little bit more into the water here.
So you kind of put it on the areas that you want to pop out a little more, add a little shine to it.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
And you know, in this case, if I had more time, I would go in and I'd put a light blue into this water, though I do kind of like it over here. And maybe this may be one where I look at it in a day or two and say, man, I'm so glad I didn't do that. I definitely need to go into the islands and the peninsula and do some work on that. And I need to come back in and work on this figure. But I feel like I'm on the way to something that I'm going to be okay with and happy with. And it just may require another 45 minutes or so.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and open up our chat to questions that come through. If anyone has any questions, and I already see one.
Sure.
So Steve, if you don't mind, can you show us the mix with the gum arabic and the paints, like how you would mix that?
Sure. So this thing's a mess right now. Sorry.
That's okay. We see the true workings of an artist.
This is the mix right here. So I just scooped out a brush full of water. I put it in there. This is a scoop of a brush full of the gum arabic. I just mixed it in with the water, and I'm going to grab, and it almost seems like it gets darker right before your eyes. If I just had water, it wouldn't be that dark. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of white and put it in. Now, if I just take a little bit of raw sienna with white, it's just not as thick. I mean, this basically, this stuff thickens your paint and you get a different texture to it. And this will take a little bit of play so that you feel comfortable. Sometimes it'll feel gummy, and then I go back and get extra water and I soften it up a little bit. And it's like anything else, you're going to learn and grow with it as you play with it more and more.
That's like the sketchbook tips you were giving us earlier will come in handy for this.
It would be a really nice 1 month thing to work on, is just to play with gum arabic. Let me think of the ways I can use this. Maybe you could put a few leaves in a tree with a little bit of extra shine. Maybe you could use it if you're a botanical painter and you're doing flowers and you want that, like that water droplets on the petals. The little bit of shine you get from gum arabic would be really nice.
So there's a question.
Sure. Can I say one more thing first?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So when I clean my brushes too, every few weeks with my good brushes, some of the not so good brushes don't get the royal treatment, I guess. But I'll actually shampoo and condition my brushes to get them really clean. And then I dip them in gum arabic, take off the excess, and then I just roll it. And then I work it to a point, and it'll come back. Anyone who's bought a nice brush at a store remembers that sweet point that you get.
Yeah,
And after you use it for a
absolutely.
few weeks, they get a little duller. And but you have to take care of brushes. And I don't use sable like some people do. I've used them in the past. They're marvelous. I just morally, I just don't do that. So I'm always looking for these synthetic brushes that work pretty well this way. And a lot of them are really, really good. And I just try to take care of them. Gum arabic is another way. I'll take this and then I'll have a clip and I'll hang it. I'm sorry, too close to the camera. I'll hang it like this, so it's point straight down, and it'll dry out. And I have enough brushes, so I just switch to a different one for a while. And I'm just constantly trying to keep them in good shape, so I can keep these for a long time. You invest some money in them, and I want them to last for me.
Absolutely.
I just did this one the other day, and it still has a nice. I mean, I've had this brush for 3 years, and it's a good brush. It's an Escoda. They make them by hand over in Spain, and this is a synthetic, and I take care of it, and I keep getting the point back, and it's a beautiful brush that I can use, and hopefully I'll use for years to come.
That's a good
Sorry.
tip. And no, actually, you're quite close to answering the question. Somebody was wondering if the gum arabic would be bad for the paintbrush.
I mean, no, it's in every watercolor that I own has gum arabic in it. You can wash it out. Just like with any paints that are non-staining, you can go back in and lift them off of the paper. I mean, you can do it with a brush. Sometimes if I like panic, I'll stick the whole thing under a faucet. And if I don't have staining paints, I can take most of the paint right off the paper and start over again. And you can get those magic white sponges, magic erasers, and they'll take stuff off too. Partially because there's gelatin within a lot of papers, which is why I use Fabriano. They use non-animal based gelatin, but and then Etcher does too, which I was so fired up. So that's why I'm using that sketchbook. And then the gum arabic helps too. You just loosen up the gum arabic and the pigment lifts off. You can wash it out of your brushes easily. And yeah, I've done this. I've probably done the gum arabic trick for the point with this one 5 times already. I mean, I've used this enough to wear off the writing on the sides, but that's my favorite brush. I use this constantly. And
those are some great tips too, how to care for your brush and how to make your painting beautiful. Have you ever used gum arabic in powder form? Is the next question.
Yeah. And I can't find it where I am right now. So I bought this at an art supply store. I thought it was Winsor Newton. It's actually Dale Rowney. They're a good art producer too, an art supply producer. But my original thing, I lived in California, and there's this little art shop. I hadn't painted in years. I walked in there and I saw watercolors and these journals, and it's like 10 years ago. And I just on a whim, I just bought the stuff. And ever since, I've been painting every day. I can't stop. And one of the things they had there were these powdered pigments, Jacquard, I think that is how you pronounce it, Pearl-X paints. And you can use the pigments for a lot of different things, but they were also selling gum arabic, and you mix it, I think it's 4-to-1, the pigment to the gum arabic, and you mix it with water and you have a paint. I've played around mixing it with honey to give it that delivery system, which worked beautifully. But if you didn't use the paints up and seal them well, they would actually develop a mold. So I started just to make small amounts of it. I still have the pigments. They're in storage right now as I get to my new place. I like the dried. And so when I'm doing a technique like this, if I have the dried in front of me, I'll have the container open. And sometimes I'll just take my wet brush and dip it into the powder, and it'll look like I dipped it into sugar or something. Then I'll just stir it into a paint mix that I have. And I got really good at determining exactly the amount that I needed to create the effect I was going for. And I love the powdered mix. And I would recommend it. I'm sure you can probably track it down somewhere. Maybe Etcher may have it. I didn't even look on your website for that.
I don't think we do, but maybe we need to get going on that. And
hey, can I say
you?
one thing?
Oh yeah.
So I got this little Etcher Field palette, which I love. and try not to get paint on my fingers. Whoops, failed. But inside of this, there's another tray. This would be one of those things where I could mix up gum arabic with water and it'd be kind of a paste, and I could put it in here and just let it dry a little bit, and I could travel with it, and I could do those same things with it, dip into this, or I could bring the little container of it and just pour it in here. So if I'm painting on site, I could dip into it and get those effects that I wanted to. This is a nice travel kit. It's a really good quality palette, and for me, this is my whole palette again, laid out just the way I always lay it out, and with a lot of extra things for mixing. So I love the idea now that I have it. So I'm going to have to get dried gum arabic and do that.
That's awesome. And will you be using any of the gum arabic for your mini workshop that's coming up?
Yeah, I'm intending to. So I've been playing
questions. I feel like we need more.
Yeah, I've been playing with it again, and folks, I'm gonna make sure that I can do everything I want to do in that time period. I apologize for not getting all of this done. I've recorded before, but I've always been able to edit the video. So I will be able to get this whole thing done. It's going to be the other side of the Can Island Lighthouse. And I do want to use the gum arabic for some of the shimmer on water and some of the light effects on a boat. And from there's going to be a sunrise, and there's going to be some reflection off the glass in the lighthouse. And I think it's perfect for those kinds of things. It's one, you can't do it for the whole painting. I guess you could. I've done it for a tropical water scene where I did that beautiful light wash over the sand beach, just tapering off into the water. And then I went back and I painted my water with gum arabic, and I got this beautiful translucent tropical water. And I think, but I'll work on the glass on this and a few of the ripples with that. And it's a great thing to play with. I highly recommend it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing all the awesome information today. I'm going to just drop a few links in the chat so everyone can check out your mini workshop, which is on September 6th. And you're looking at the photo inspiration for that class. If you haven't already attended one of our mini workshops, you can join our mailing list at the link in the chat. And I'll put that in the chat now. And you can join in for a mini workshop for free if it's your first time joining us. So that link is in the chat now.
Oh, nice.
And then, well, I know it's great to try it out and see the difference. It's more of a step-by-step tutorial, so you really get to paint along and ask questions. It's really awesome. So I hope you guys do sign up. We also have our survey. If you guys don't mind filling that out for us, we love to hear from you. It takes about 2 minutes, and we just love hearing your honest feedback. We share with the artists so they know and they can hear from you as well. So that's just really awesome also. And Steve, I always like to, I'm going to put you on the screen again.
Sure.
I always like to end with the artist just wrapping us up for the evening, and anything you would like to say to our awesome viewers today.
I think art is like anything else. You have to practice. You have to explore new techniques. You have to actively do it, and that's how you get better. You read, you tap the vast amount of knowledge on the internet. You ask people questions, but you have to apply it after you do these things. So I think you could make a beautiful kit out of just a couple paints, and you could really paint. It doesn't have to be expensive. You could, like me, be a person who's fascinated with tubes of paint and carry around like $900 worth of paint in your truck. That's great too. But you have to pick up the brush and you have to put it in there, and you can't let anything discourage you. And my best advice with any painting is, if you think it's bad, set it aside for a day, a week, a month, come back and look at it later. You may see it differently, or you may see how to improve it, fix it if you feel like it needs to be fixed. But you'll learn from it every time. And this one I've been working on today, I will not stop. So you can go to my Instagram page. It'll be there in a couple days for sure. Maybe tonight. I have to finish it, and will. And this has been a learning process for me as well. And I'm going to continue to think like this. And boy, I hope you join us. I'm going to be checking out the other workshops. I was looking through some of the artists, and I want to learn from them as well. So
Well, we are
Let's do it.
so glad
We'll
to
do it
have had you
together.
tonight. Yeah, and so many people are just saying thank you at this point, and we really enjoyed this tonight. So thank you again for being here. And
I
thank you
appreciate it.
everybody for joining us as well. Have a great rest of your day or night, and join us again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone. And now everyone's saying love.